Everyone has a story to tell. They're just looking for someone who wants to hear it. We assume no one wants to listen, and because we already know our own story so well, it gets a little boring to our own ears. We start to believe that our life experiences are pretty much the same as everyone else's, that our stories aren't worth sharing, that they're not interesting. But they are, and it's my goal to prove it to you. My name is Chris Beatty, and these are Interesting People. Today's guest is one of the stars of the book and film Nomadland, which won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture. She's also the topic of my next book, which is a biography of how a divorced woman living in a van found herself walking the red carpet at the Oscars and sharing the spotlight with Frances McDormand. She's also my aunt. When I first met her, she went by Charlene Beatty, but to the rest of the world, and on her IMDb account, she just goes by Swankie. All right, you ready to go?
I'm never ready.
You're never ready? Well, this one's an easy one. Are you out of practice from all your press events from no?
One time I had to do 8 international interviews, one right after another after another.
Were they all in English, or?
They were.
Okay.
Most of them spoke pretty good English, but the studio had it all lined up, and they had somebody else, plugging us in. So they'd introduce the person to me, and they introduce me to the person, and say, "Okay, go," and they'd start asking me questions, and so it took all day, one after another after.
So they just sat you down at a computer and just said, "All right, you're going to be."
I was at my computer, and they were.
Oh, really?
Camera, so I could see them.
Okay.
And they could see me. So I had my kayak map in the background.
Yeah.
My Kayak America. So this is my van, my desk, and then the doors are behind me. What? 15, 16 years ago now.
You've been a celebrity for that long now, huh?
Well, we filmed in Arizona in 2019. Came out in 2020. By the time, September 2020, we did the premiere at the Rose Bowl. Mm-hmm. So after that, I started having a fan base.
Were all the interviews like after the movie came out? In advance?
No, it was before.
It was before, okay.
It was all before the premiere. And I did others. I did a whole lot of others besides the international ones, but they had one day set up for these international interviews, which I just didn't understand why me. I just couldn't figure it out. I'm just an old desert rat living in a car in a van in the desert.
Well, you're interesting. That's the whole point. You're interesting. Not a lot of people know somebody with that story, especially somebody that becomes a movie star.
I don't see why. In 2009, I was actually shopping for a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. My knees were so bad that I couldn't walk half a block without just crying. Mm-hmm. Just tears were. I went out with my son one day from his house to take a walk, and I got about a half a block from the house, and I said, "You have to go get the car and come back and get me." Mm. I was just both of my knees was just bone on bone. There was no cartilage left in there, and that is so painful. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking how to get a wheelchair, and I go, how am I going to live in a wheelchair? I don't even really have a place to live, and people do it now. I've met people who manage it, but I couldn't wrap my brain around it, and it just made me more and more depressed all the time. And the more depressed I got and the less active I got, the more weight I gained. And I got up to almost 300 pounds. Ridiculous. And I was going downhill fast. And I had, back in the 90s sometime, I had arthroscopic surgery on both of my knees, where they just go in with a scope, and garbage and stuff. But I went back to see that same surgeon, and I met David Swankie in 2001, and he died right after that. And this is in 2004. He put me on his deathbed. He put me on his military health insurance.
Oh, wow.
Literally on his deathbed. He died 4 days after he put me on his insurance. So I went back in to see the surgeon that had done my knees before all that happened. And he said, "There's nothing else I can do. It's time for you to think about total knee replacements." Well, if you ever watch a video on that, you ain't never, ever going to want to do that. You know?
I try to avoid all the
No,
YouTube video
no,
surgery videos.
because I did right after it was mentioned to me the first time I watched the video, and they show the knee up here like this, and it's all open, and the kneecap is still attached, but it's flapping around in the video,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like,
Ugh.
I'm shaking my head, and I'm having some kind of seizure, you know, thinking about that and remembering that video. And he goes, "Your insurance will pay for it." And I hadn't even thought about using the military health insurance.
Because it's all brand new to you at that
Yeah.
point, yeah?
And I went, "Huh? You know, what?" He knew what my insurance was, and he says, "It'll be covered 100%. And I thought, wait a minute, I can get rid of the pain, I can walk again, I can have a life again, and I don't have to go bankrupt. Not that I had anything to bankrupt, but anyway. And it would be paid for 100%. I didn't spend $1 on either knee. And they probably cost $150,000.
So that was the insurance. You got that when he on his deathbed, and then that covers you for life as a military.
Unless I remarry.
Oh wow.
I don't see any reason to do that.
Yeah, sure.
I
Got a good thing going with your health insurance.
Listen, if you don't have full military health benefits, don't even introduce yourself to me because we're not going there.
Not worth it.
No, you ain't got nothing I want.
So what makes you interesting?
Well, that was an eye-opener because that meant my kids didn't have to worry about my safety health-wise on the road anymore, and I could walk again. My pain was gone. I began losing the weight because I began getting active again, and then I realized, well, you know, I had a wonderful grandmother growing up. I probably wouldn't be alive today if it hadn't been for my grandmother. And you always imagine you're going to be who your role model was. That's the kind of person you're going to be because that's who you emulate. So I figured that was going to happen for me. Now all of a sudden I've got grandkids, and my kids act like they hate me in front of my grandkids. And I'm going, wait a minute, this doesn't fit. This doesn't work for me. I'm not going to be disrespected in front of my grandchildren. And so I just started withdrawing from that environment. It's like, if I go over there and you're insulting me in front of them, I can't go there. It's not something I can do. And so then I thought, well, now what? You know, okay, I can walk again. I've got health insurance. You need to find something to fill that void because what you were dreaming about isn't working. And so I started making a list of all the strange and wonderful things I'd always thought I wanted to do. Kind of like a bucket list or a wish list, I don't know. And see, the other thing that happened in 2001, when David Swankie and I got married, we were supposed to get married in June. It was up in Wenatchee, Washington. I don't know if you know that area or not, but we were going to do some boating and different stuff like that. And he died on June 4th. And we were supposed to get married June 23rd or something like that. I don't remember exact date now. And so, but all the reservations were already made for the bed and breakfast and the wedding cake was ordered. Everything was all set up and arranged. And he ends up dying 3
Wow.
weeks early. So everybody just kept their reservations and showed up anyway. That was 2001. So that's 3 years before my knee surgeries. And I wasn't doing very well even back then. And they all decided they were going to take a rafting trip down the Wenatchee River. But I wasn't going to be allowed to go because my knees were too bad. It wasn't safe.
Oh wow.
So they cut me out of the rafting trip. And it pissed me off something royal. And so, you know, I stewed about that from 2001 till after I recovered from the knee surgeries. It actually took me about 2 years to get my balance back. You know, at first I couldn't walk, and I had to walk with a walker, and then I used 2 walking sticks, and after a while, I had absolutely no balance left. It was like somebody turned off the balance meter or something.
It's like you had to relearn how to walk.
I had no balance. I had no coordination. So after I got down to 1 stick, I started going camping again, and I started walking around. And as soon as I hit that environment with the uneven ground and walking through babbling brooks with rocks everywhere and everything, as soon as I started using all those muscles where you have to adjust the angle and pitch of your feet up and down and raise different heights to step over logs or rocks or anything, I started getting better again. I started regaining my health and my fitness and my balance, and I thought, maybe I can have a life again. And so that was like, took from 2004 to about 2006, 2 years. That's what bad shape I was in. Then I thought, well, now what? I can walk again. I don't know where the idea came from, but I just decided I was getting a boat. I was going to get a boat.
Think it had anything to
They
do with that
wouldn't-
rafting trip, or?
Yep, it did,
Yeah,
because I was still pissed about it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me go
Yeah,
on
I'll
the
show
river.
you.
I'll show you. I'll get my own damn book. I was living at an apartment on a lake, and I was watching people go out in these racing skiffs, the
Yep.
long, skinny ones, and people in kayaks and out there on the lake every day. And I went, I'm just going to get me a boat. I've never been in a kayak in my life. So I did. I went to a kayak shop and I looked at different ones. I didn't know what I wanted to buy, and I didn't know anything about them. And I was staying with a friend in Monterey, California, and there's Monterey Bay kayaks down there. And they had a deal where you could pay a fee, I think it was $20, to demo kayaks. So you would just try out different ones, little ones, big ones, ones like you have. And one I tried was like 9 foot long, and I got in one side and went right on out the other side. I didn't even hardly sit down, and I flipped it over, and I went, I don't want this one. This is not the one.
Next.
And so I finally came upon this 12-foot ocean kayak, it's almost like a pontoon. It's got a rounded bottom, and it's got edges that come up like that, like a pontoon. And so it's real stable on the water, because this is like on the surface of the water, and this rolls, so it's maneuverable, but stable. And I got that thing, and I rocked it from side to side to side to side, and I couldn't tip it over.
Oh, wow.
I tried to tip it over, and it won't stay upside down. And in the water especially. In the water, it'll just flip right back over again. And I said, this works. And so I said, this is it. I went inside and tried to buy one. They said, it's going to be 6 weeks. I've already spent 6 months or more thinking about this. I wasn't waiting 6 months for them, 6 weeks for them to get a kayak. So I went to a different town in California, and I found one in stock and bought it. First thing I did was sit down to see if my butt would fit in the seat. If you can't fit in it, you better not buy it, Yeah, it was 17 inches wide. And I said, well, that settles that. My ass can never be any wider than 17 inches. It has to stay, fitting in the seat. But I had never kayaked in my life, and a tour guide or somebody will go out with you every time you demo a kayak. So you get out in the water, and he's actually taught me. And this guy was amazing. He was born with one whole arm and a part of a second arm, and he had like a stub below his elbow.
Okay, wow.
And he had a little harness that he would fit that thing into, like a sleeve that was tied on the paddle. And he would stick his arm in there so he could maneuver the paddle from both sides. And he was my instructor.
Oh, wow.
He taught me how to kayak.
Yeah, so if he can do it, there's no reason why you couldn't do it, huh?
And he was good. So he taught me, and I learned in the ocean, which is different than learning on still water, because you manage the waves and the seals. And
manage the seals?
Oh, my God. You had to go through a whole flock of seals to launch and get out past the marina.
Yeah, we don't have those in lakes in Nebraska.
Yeah.
We have just a lot of seaweed.
So the ocean was a lot more challenging, but I think I built up my confidence quite a bit. And I still had a whole lot to learn since that was my first date. And then in the meantime, I'm getting a van ready to live in. I had decided, this is what we're talking about now, 2008. And I had probably decided in 1997 or so that as soon as I could afford to be mobile, I was going to go mobile.
Okay.
And in other words, as soon as I could afford the technology to have a computer and a laptop and a printer, and I had all that stuff with me that I would need to do things, and I got a vehicle, and I figured out a way to live in it, I was going to go. I didn't know where I was going to go.
So you're planning since like 1997 to 2000, what was that, 6? Almost a decade, huh?
Almost a decade.
Wow.
To find a way to, and the only thing that made it possible is, I think it was after my second knee surgery in 2004. I was in traffic, and I was healed up enough that I could walk, and I needed a job, so I was going for a job interview. I was going to a secondhand store to try to find some fresher dress-up outfits for this job interview, And you know how when you're getting ready for a job interview, you kind of rewrite the resume in your head and you're kind of rehearsing things in your head. So I'm driving down the street with all this stuff spinning through my brain on the way to the secondhand shop. And I look in the rearview mirror in this car, and I was stopped in traffic, and I had a tall curb on one side, and traffic coming the other direction on the other in the other lane, and traffic in front of me that I was slowing down and stopping for. And I look in my rearview mirror, and I see this sedan barreling up on my rear end, and I thought, she's not going to stop. She's going to stop. She's not going to stop. And so I'm still protecting my knees because they're fresh from knee surgeries. I took my feet off of the pedals, off the floor, so that there wouldn't be, if she hit me, there wouldn't be a jolt on my knees or tear up my knees. So I had enough presence of mind to lift my feet up, and I kept watching that mirror. She's going to stop. She's not going to stop. She's going to stop. She's not going to stop. And I see, bam, right into my van. And it was the first, only new car I had ever bought. And it was a van, a Ford Aerostar, extended van that I was turning into a camper. And she totaled it. The rear-ended man totaled her. She was on her phone, talking on her phone. So I get out and walk around, and I'm wanting to check on the knee, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still bandaged up from the surgery.
Wow.
So I pull up my pant leg to look at my knee and check it and everything, and she walks up, "Oh, are you hurt? Are you hurt?" Like, you should care now. And totaled my van.
So that was a little bit of a setback, or was that a spark that made
I actually had post-traumatic stress from that. It traumatized me so bad. I still had trouble if somebody's tailgating me.
Really?
But back then, would be so bad if anybody got close to me in the back, I had to pull off the road. Because after the accident, when I started driving again, I would get somewhere and look around and go, where am I and where was I going? I would have blackouts driving the freaking car.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I'm going, did I kill anybody on the way here? Did I, what happened? And I couldn't remember where I was going. I went to a psychologist. I got tested. I got my brain tested, reflexes tested, everything tested. And it was just post-traumatic stress. And also, when I tried to talk to people, and when I was talking to the doctors and explaining what happened and everything, I was stuttering. I couldn't make a whole sentence. I couldn't keep on a train of thought. I'd start down halfway through a sentence and forget the ending, and I couldn't interview. It was impossible to go on a job interview. How are you going? I either sounded drunk or crazy or like an idiot. I don't know how I was coming across, but I was not sounding coherent at all. And I don't know. It took a while to get past that.
So was that the motivation? What was the moment where you decided, you know what, we're going to do it? We're going to go become a nomad and do this thing?
Well, I'd already decided. Like I said, I decided back in the 90s I was going to be a nomad because it didn't seem like the family. I said once to my older son, it feels like our family's falling apart. And he says, what family? We haven't been a family for a long time. If you can imagine one of your kids saying something like that to you.
Yeah. And
then keep hearing that kind of thing over and over again, it's just not something you want to keep exposing yourself to.
Sure.
At least I don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't know what being a nomad was. I didn't know what van dwelling was. I didn't know what any of those words meant. I'd never heard of van dwellers or Bob Wells or cheap RV living or any of that. But I began to look things up online because how do people do this? How do you go? And I had my best long-term friend lived in Monterey, California, which is why I ended up down there. My family was in Washington State, and I just felt like I couldn't stay there anymore. I needed to get some distance. So I went to stay with her while I figured out what was next. And that's where I bought my kayak, learned to kayak. I bought a used cargo van and built it out with a bed and stuff in it, and began to look these things up online and learn about van dwelling, where people went, learned about quartzite. And it just all started pulling together. And I had to get rid of things. So I'm in California, and I get a message from a storage unit up in Washington State where I have all my stuff. And they said, we had a big storm, and this tree landed on your unit, and it's leaking. It's flooded. I'm in frickin' California. I got to drive all the way to Washington State to rescue whatever I can rescue out of the leaking storage unit. So got up there, I had to buy a cargo trailer to haul everything back again. And well, a lot of things got ruined. Luckily, none of my artwork got ruined. So hauled all that back down to California, and I'm going, this shit's not fitting in a van. You gotta. So now I gotta go through everything. I gotta figure what to save, what to get rid of. I gotta save all the autobiographical stuff. I gotta save all the genealogy. So I started squishing it down into tighter and tighter, more compressed boxes and make it as small as possible. I kept the cargo trailer. So I thought, well, if it doesn't fit in the van or the cargo trailer, it's got to go. Well, I had like, I'd worked in offices for decades. I had all these dress-up office clothes, and I go, I'm never going to dress like that again. I had, the big, heavy black construction bags, trash bags.
Yeah.
I got rid of 5 bags of women's dress clothes.
Oh, wow.
5 of those big bags. I took them to a donation center that helps women return to work or find jobs. 5 bags full. And other stuff. So much stuff. And finally I got it down to where I had a bed to sleep in the van. I had a little stove I could cook on. I'd gotten rid of all the stuff, and I thought, that's it. I'm leaving. And I didn't know where or why. I still needed to do things like I needed to have solar so I would have power out there in the wilderness, wherever the wilderness was. And so I had a friend in Texas who would help me do that. I had to build a rack on top of I had a rack installed on the top of the van, a cargo rack. And so I had to build a platform on that to install the solar panels, and a friend in Texas helped me do that. And I had to because I have some respiratory things, I needed ventilation. So the first thing I did was install a vent fan in the ceiling of the van because I needed to make sure I had good airflow and kept the air in there fresh and clean. That was my introduction to Bob Wells and cheap RV living.
Was figure out how to do all that?
I priced it in Monterey, California, and I got 3 quotes for installing a vent fan in the ceiling. I had the fan. I bought the fan already. Somebody told me what to buy, and I bought the fan. I just needed to install. The one quote was $250. Camping World was $500 or more. They couldn't give me a top figure because they wouldn't know what was involved until they cut the hole. What kind of rewiring or anything was that. I don't remember what the third one was, but it was just as ridiculous as, ranging from $250 to over $500, and I didn't have $50 to my name. So I reached out to Bob Wells on Cheap RV Living. I never met him. I'd never even heard of it before, and I explained the situation. He said, well, there are a few of us gathering at the slabs in California. If you can get there, which was 3 or 4 hour drive from where I was in Monterey, at Swankie speeds. And he said, we can probably do that for $20. And I went, what? Because all we needed was the sealant tape, butyl tape, to seal it. I had the fan. We just needed to cut the hole, connect the wires, put the goop down for the seal, and set it in and screw it in. 14 screws. So I said, okay, I'm on my way. I hooked up everything, and then I took off for the slabs in California. I met up with about 6 or 7 other van dwellers. We all decided we'd camp in a cluster together. We got camp set up, and we started working on things. So there were like five or six guys there. The day came where we're going to install my fan. 6 guys show up at the van to start, and the van was already paneled and everything, so the paneling had to be removed, the insulation had to be removed, and you had to figure out where you're going to cut the hole and cut it. And so they all started tearing things apart inside, and I said, wait, stop. I don't want y'all to do it for me. I want you to show me what to do, or tell me what to do. I want to do the work so I understand what's involved.
Yeah.
If I ever need to fix anything or replace anything, I'll know how to do it. Well, I lost 4 guys straight off. A guy in a wheelchair stayed. Bob Wells stayed. And one other guy stayed for a while, and he eventually left. But and the guy in the wheelchair couldn't get out of the wheelchair, so there wasn't a whole lot he could do other than advise. And with Bob Wells there, he didn't need to advise because Bob Wells understood how to do all this. So, and we didn't have a ladder tall enough to reach the van, so it was kind of a comical. I'm sitting up with my legs spread open where the hole's going to be in the roof of the van, on top of the van. Bob is standing on a short ladder beside the van, handing me tools and telling me what to do. And he can't even hardly reach me on top of the van because it's a short ladder. So I had to climb up on a short ladder with my brand new knees and somehow figure out how to get up on that roof and cut a hole in the van. And so I did it. And Bob stood on that ladder. I have photographs of him standing on the ladder beside the van. And one of the gals there took a picture looking through. She said, "Swankie's the only person I know who'll cut a hole in the roof of a van just to make a picture frame." She took a picture of me looking down through the hole from inside. Still one of my favorite pictures. And so I installed the frickin' fan all by myself. It took us 6.5 hours in the desert sun. And he stood on that ladder that whole time. And if I got off, I had to throw one leg over, and he had to take my leg and put it down on the ladder and hold it on the ladder while I found the other leg to throw off, and then make sure that I was solidly planted because I can't see anything.
Sure.
I'm going off backwards.
From there, was it official? Were you a nomad at that point, or was it still kind of half in, half out?
I think that I didn't have the trailer with me yet. I left it at my friend's. And I still needed to get the solar. So I needed to go to Texas and get the solar installed. And so the guy in the wheelchair went to his house in Texas, built a platform. I built a wooden platform to set on top of the metal cargo rack. I built it on the ground on his patio outside his RV. And then some laborers were coming back from work one night. And I said, "Hey, guys, could you kind of help us with this, And they came over, and the two of them lifted that platform up onto the roof and set it in place, and then I fastened it all down and then got the solar panels and fastened them on and hooked them up. And then I went back for my trailer, and I thought, okay, now what?
Your trailer was in California, so you went from California to Texas, back to California.
And I thought, well, I don't know I hadn't thought about this ahead of time, but I sat there wondering what to do next, and I thought, Kayak America. And I just took off. I said, go to the next state. And so I think I don't know how this exactly happened, but I did Nevada and Arizona that year. And then I left from California and went north. And I just started going from one state to the next. I'd get to a new state, get the map out and look for water, and go there and see if it looked suitable. Not too fast, not too slow, not too shallow. I don't care about deep. I kind of went into an automatic mode of some sort. I wasn't thinking anymore. I wasn't thinking about family. I was just thinking about the miles and how far it was to the next place, the next body of water. I just kept going.
So you had a goal to kind of keep you moving.
Yeah, that was my goal and my purpose. And it's like, I developed this motto is like, if you don't have a reason to stay, then you must have a reason to leave. Anything is better than going crazy, staying in a bad situation and losing your mind. And so I just kept going. And I thought, I kind of set this goal in my mind that I'm going to kayak Hawaii on my 70th birthday. And so I started in 2009. I left California in 2009 and started kayaking states. And I ended up in Hawaii on my 70th birthday.
Wow.
In the middle of the ocean. I'm sitting in the ocean in a kayak, I didn't take my kayak to Hawaii, but the kayak I ended up renting there was exactly the same as the kayak I owned. And I'm sitting in the ocean. I'm with 3 or 4 other people who had kind of gone off ahead of me somewhere, and I'm pretty much by myself. And all of a sudden, it hit me that I did it. I'm kayaking my 50th state on my 70th birthday.
Yeah.
And I sat there in the ocean screaming, I did it, I did it, I did it. I'm just screaming out loud. Nobody to hear me but the turtles. I thought, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I set a goal for myself and made it happen.
Yeah. So how long did it take? So 2009 is when you
5
started?
years.
5 years? You did it in 5 years.
I finished it on my 70th birthday, May 16, 2014. And do you know what I did? 2 years before that, I got a map with these stickers that you put on for each state. So as I kayaked the state, I'd put the sticker on and write the date on it. And down here on Hawaii, is little stickers down here in the corner of the map. And in 2012, sometime, I wrote May 16, 2014 on that map for Hawaii.
Oh, ahead of time.
I went to write, after I kayaked it, I went to write it on the map, and I looked, I said, when did I put that on there? It was my handwriting, and I was like, I already wrote it on there. I wrote it on 2 years before it happened. I said, that in itself is a miracle.
Yeah.
That is just an absolute miracle.
That's so cool.
And I don't know, I guess, to me, it seemed like the normal, it seemed normal to me. Everything I was doing seemed normal, but everybody else seemed amazed by it, including Jessica, when she found me.
Jessica Bruder, for the author of Nomadland. Yeah. So when did that happen? When did you meet her?
That was a pretty strange story, too. The book before Nomadland was The Burning Book, which is a pictorial history of Burning Man. It's a thick book with lots of color photographs of Burning Man over time.
It's like a week-long festival in the middle of Nevada?
I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
It's in Black Rock Desert in northwestern Nevada, in the middle of nowhere. It's a playa, which is just an old salt flat. Anyway, my son's a burner. That's what they call people who go to Burning Man. There's a burner. Did you ever see the giant Rubik's Cube that they built? It's bigger than life, and it lights up. And you can actually maneuver it just like you do. He and his friends built that. And they took it to Burning Man, and they lit it up in the night, and people could actually sit on the ground with like a joystick and work the puzzle. And the lights will change.
Wow.
There's lots of pictures if you look up Rubik's Cube. Anyway, Richard built that. He has a whole group of people that he gets together with, and they design their project for Burning Man, and then they go. Anyway, so Jessica's researching Burning Man for her book, and my son is a regular burner. So somehow they met up out there. I don't exactly remember how that happened. And there was a conversation, and she mentioned that she was going to be writing about nomads next. And I guess she found out that Richard's mom was a nomad. So when she finally got to the desert in 2014, she hunted me up and introduced herself and asked if she didn't know anybody, could she hang out and camp with me and meet some of my friends.
So she just showed up out of nowhere. She just had this idea for a book, but didn't really know what to do.
She already had the idea for the book when she was at Burning Man. Yeah, she came and she camped with me, and she wanted to interview people. And we gave a birthday party for a 9-year-old boy that was camped with us, and she writes a lot about this in her book. The people she met in my camp, and
at that point, you've been a nomad for what, 5 or 6 years?
I started in 2009. It's 2014.
Okay, so right about 5 years. And you had finished the kayak at that point, the Kayak America. Have you done a Hawaii?
Well, I finished in 2014,
and then you
met her that fall.
Wow. So it's like you finished one life goal, and now it's kind of this new thing starts happening on its own almost.
Well, at that point, I was just camping and moving with the seasons and enjoying and doing genealogy. I kept working on the family genealogy. One day she asked to interview me, and I went, what for? I'm just me, I couldn't understand really why she wanted to interview me. And I didn't consider my life or myself anything special, but to her, my life seemed extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And later, after she published the book and I started reading about myself, I thought, well, I still don't understand any of this, and I feel a little embarrassed and humiliated, by reading about somebody else's interpretation of my life. But it was a big hit, and eventually got an option for the movie, and then they asked me to be in the movie. I thought, oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. So that's fascinating to me, because I know from working with you writing a biography that you've always had in the back of your mind, like, one day I will write a biography. But, now you're at this point in your life where you have an actual journalist saying you're fascinating. You're still a little bit, I don't know, reluctant to admit that, I guess. So what was it about wanting to write a biography that kind of always stuck out in your mind, and why you would, come to a point in your life where you didn't think that was as interesting as everyone else did?
I thought about writing almost all my life. When I was a kid, my relationship with my mother was, she had a lot of problems. I think she had been abused by her father when she was a child.
Okay.
She had a lot of unresolved issues. And she also liked my skinny cousins and my skinny sister better than my stocky self. And I think maybe I reminded her too much of my father. That didn't end well for her. So, for whatever her reasons were, she seemed to have a lot of resentment or anger that she was taking out on me that I probably didn't deserve. I'm a kid, you know. What did I ever do? Because all I ever tried to do with her was please her. You know, I mean, I babysat for her, I cleaned house for her, I tear out the kitchen cabinets and put fresh lining down on all the shelves, and I'd cook dinner. You know, I mean, I couldn't do enough to try and please her, and I could never please her. I would get frustrated, and it's like I didn't have anybody to talk to. There's no way to vent my frustration and stuff, and so I would start writing. If she upset me about something and I couldn't get it out, I would write it down, and that would help me with my stress level. And sometimes I'd just go out in the backyard and lay in the grass and watch the clouds going by, thinking, God, I just wish I could be on one of those clouds and float away somewhere. You know, that would be good. And I always just wanted to get away from her. And my sister, my older sister, got hateful and mean with me too. And she has her own story, which goes all the way back to my dad too. My mom and dad got married when my sister was just a toddler. She adored him. She adored Marion, and Marion loved babies. That's why I had so many of them. But he loved my sister, and then I came along, and then here's this little bitty baby and this 2-year-old toddler that's driving everybody crazy, and you know, and this is his baby, his first baby, you know.
Yeah.
And so he's always zeroed in on the babies. You can ask any of my siblings. It was the baby came first. And that did something to my sister Judy. It broke her somehow mentally. And after that, she would begin to do things like bash her head on the floor if she got frustrated. And she's 2 years old. How can she get rid of her frustration and anger? And she would get down on the floor and actually bash her head on the floor. I don't know. She just resented my existence. You can see, I have pictures of her before I was born with Marion, and she's happy and laughing, and he's playing with her, and she looks like a happy, normal kid. But after I was born, she didn't look so happy anymore in most of the pictures. I don't know what happened. And I would ask, my mom and dad were divorced probably before I was 2. And so I never really knew Marion. And I would ask my mom about him, and she wouldn't tell me. She said, if you can't say anything good about somebody, don't say anything at all. And later, when I was out of high school and would meet him, I would ask him questions about her. He would say the same thing. They both went to their graves without ever saying anything bad about each other. Never spoke ill of each other at all. And she never complimented him, but at least he paid her some compliments. And when I was in high school, after I got out of high school, he had said, all I can tell you is your mother was one of the most courageous women I have ever known. Well, she walked away from him with a toddler and a newborn baby and left him and set out on her own because he was abusive. He would see her as being courageous.
Pretty courageous, huh?
But he never said anything negative.
Yeah.
He didn't say she walked out on me. But he was abusive toward her. He was abusive toward May, your grandmother. He was always that way. He was that way when he was a little boy growing up. He was that way with his siblings. He was always in fights with other boys in the neighborhood in Clinton, Minnesota. They all knew him to be a scrapper. And Max, his father, put him up to this and made him fight and made him defend himself and fight other people. Yeah. And I guess he got made fun of because of his name, Marion.
I've heard that from you, and also from I got a photo album from my grandma, his other ex-wife, May, my grandma, and that was one of the things she wrote. He'd always get picked on for his name, and so he'd go and fight him.
He was always fighting. Yeah. And so something broke him along the way, too. Yeah. You were right. You said something about this thing is generational. Mm-hmm. It just goes on. Hopefully, we in our generation, your generation, can break that. Yeah. And maybe by my older son kind of moving, separating himself from me, maybe that was part of breaking that chain. Mm-hmm. is a, whatever I was doing wrong didn't get passed on to his kids. You know, he cut it off. I made mistakes. How can you be a single parent of 2 kids on limited income and not make mistakes?
Yeah.
And when their father and I broke up, I had a high school education. I had no skills, no training, no college, nothing. And I'm supposed to raise his kids are big. It took a lot to grow them. And at some point I thought, I've got to go to college. I've got to get some kind of education or training or something, because I can't support them on $200 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, total $200 a month. How many pairs of shoes they went through before they were teenagers? And I had to buy secondhand clothes. I couldn't afford to buy them new clothes. I would go through and buy every pair of pants in the thrift store that would fit their waist. And if it fit their waist, that meant I had to take 6 inches off of the bottom because it'd be too long. So I'd have a whole pile of jeans that I would have to take up, cut the legs off of.
And that was really a lot of my motivation for writing this book or starting this project with you was, you as a kid, you observe your own childhood and you try to make sense of it, right? And there was things I'd look at about my life about, first, just not knowing all my aunts and uncles and cousins the way that some of my friends would. And it just I didn't have a reason for why that was. And I think there's a part of me that resented that. There's a part of me that was curious, a part of me that was angry, a part of me that was probably just apathetic about it because I was told this is just kind of the way it is. And I think, when your story got broadcast to the world, kind of coming full circle here back to Jessica Bruder and Nomadland, it made me feel guilty about now we have this person in our family that was kept secret for all these years. And we have Frances McDormand's always been one of my favorite actresses. Her husband is one of my all-time favorite directors. The Coen brothers. I love I love most of their movies. There's a few duds in there. But it's just so bizarre because my wife and I would watch every single Oscar-nominated movie every year. That's just what we've always done. We've always loved movies. And that was every single year we would take the list and we would work them through. And that was something that actually bonded my wife and I together. And then all of a sudden we got this Oscar-nominated movie and my aunt's in it who I don't know. And at that point I thought we had never met. I didn't realize you had been to my preschool graduation. That came out when you and I started working together on the book. And I felt guilty about it. But at the same time, I also felt like I never really had permission to know you because I'd never really been introduced to you in a way that I could get to know you. And it wasn't my fault. I don't think it was really anyone's fault. Honestly, I don't think it was anyone's fault. It was just the thing that our family had this weird dynamic that, you talk about Marion and, your mom never saying anything bad about each other. On one sense, I get that. And I think it's commendable to not speak ill of somebody. But there's also part of it with just there's a transparency in knowing the truth and how people really feel that when you bottle that up for a while, you don't understand why it is that things are the way that they are. And, getting to know you has been such a joy, but also it's just I wanted to understand why are things in my family the way that they are. And I think that one of the biggest realizations that I've had is just, like you said earlier, how generational so much of this stuff is, because I feel like maybe it's the American culture or whatever it is. We get told we create our own destiny, us as individuals, the American dream, we're in charge of our destiny. We got to just work hard and everything will fall into place. But that's just not true. So much of it isn't true. It doesn't work out that way. And so now I look at my dad, who is a great grandfather, who is a great dad. And I look at the example he had from Marion, my grandfather, and think, wow, you really made something of your life.
Yeah.
You really, my dad really made something. And there's things.
He learned how not to be.
Exactly, and that set him up, and that set up me up for success, now I'm trying to be a good dad, but I had a way better foundation than my dad ever did.
Yeah.
And to your point about the generation, I hope that sets a different trajectory in my kid's life and our generation, but there's so much baggage to overcome that I think that I'm just trying to understand that even in going through this process.
Yeah, people make the mistake, I think, in most cases, thinking that everything that we are came about because of environmental factors, and that's just simply not true.
All right, so Nomadland, huh? You become a nomad. Your son meets Jessica from Burning Man. She finds you, and she writes a book, and you become a movie star, huh? Is that how it went down?
Pretty much.
Did you have any idea of obviously you had interviews with her, and I think I've read elsewhere that somebody approached you about doing a movie and you thought it'd be like a whole movie kind of thing and you didn't understand.
Yeah. So Jessica writes the book, and then one of the producers, Peter Spears, finds the book and reads it, and he's a friend of Frances McDormand, and so he tracks Frances down. Frances is attending a film festival in North Dakota or someplace up there where Chloe is releasing her movie about the Indians on the Indian reservation. I can't remember the title of the movie now, but so Frances is attending this movie premiere and has just watched Chloe's movie on the problems at the Indian reservation, and Peter has approached her about Nomadland book, saying, Frances, we need to option this book for a movie. And she sees this movie by Chloe, produced by Chloe, and goes, that's it. I need Chloe.
That's the person that could do it justice.
I need Chloe to do Nomadland. So she snatches Chloe aside and takes her off to her hotel room somewhere, and they start brainstorming Nomadland, and Chloe commits to making the movie with Frances.
I guess if somebody's never read it, the book is pure journalism. You know, yes. Jessica talks to you, talks to your friends. She goes and becomes. She goes to Amazon. She becomes a nomad for a few months just to understand it. And it's pure nonfiction, not even memoir, just nonfiction journalism reporting, and it reads that way. It's a great book, but there isn't like it's kind of almost. If it's anybody's journey, it's Jessica's, just in understanding these people. But the movie, if anybody's seen it, is not that. You know, it's a completely different. It's a script that I feel like does justice to the story, but it's fictional. You know, and where Frances plays a fictional character that's kind of a composite of a lot of people's experiences. But that whole story, the story was pretty much written by Chloe. The story of Fern, the Frances McDormand's character.
Fern is a composite of Linda May and me, and maybe a few other nomads mushed in there. So it just evolved. It was kind of a natural evolution as Chloe heard all these bits and pieces of stories. So Frances evidently says, go out and find these people. Let's build this crew. Let's build this cast. Let's pull this together, you know. So Frances sends Chloe out to find Linda May, get acquainted with Linda May. That's why she ends up working with Linda May at the different...
Because Linda May was in the book, the Jessica's book.
Yeah,
so she was another character.
She was actually the primary character.
That's right, yeah.
So she had even a poorer background, it's the only word I can think of right now, than my background. Mm-hmm. You know, she was even poorer than I was, which was pretty poor.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And she had more kids than I had.
Yeah.
So that made her even poorer.
And you knew, did you know Linda ahead of time? Or?
I met Linda in 2014 also.
Okay.
She came into... Maybe I met her in 2013. She came into one of the RTR gatherings, and she came in with an old RV that the electrical wasn't working, and I was with the guy that knew about some stuff like that. And so I took him over to meet Linda May, and she was saying, like, I can't, my refrigerator doesn't work, my heat doesn't work, my lights don't work, and all this. So, well, we need to help her, you know. Mm-hmm. And he took a look at her system, and that's how I met her. That was the first time I met Linda May. I don't think I had met Jessica yet at that point, although she was around that year, and I think she was around the year before. I think she had tent camped with Bob at RTR the year before, but I didn't, and I was there, because I remember there was only 1 year that we camped at Dome Rock, and that she was at Dome Rock, and there was a lot of wind, and tents got blown down, or she lost her tent, and everything got wet, and you know.
Because how many people are at the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous gathering? Hundreds or more?
The one at Dome Rock was either the second, third gathering, and there were about maybe 60 units then. The following year, there were about 150. Every year, it more than doubled.
And grew.
More than doubled every year.
Okay.
So Jessica shows up. She's already met a lot of people, and because of the kayaking and everything, everybody kept telling her she needed to meet me, and Richard had already told her at Burning Man about me, so it became high on her list. And she had, in turn, once they started working on the movie idea from the book, Frances was saying, well, you need to get Linda May, you need to get Charlene, you need to talk to these people and pull them in. Okay, so I didn't think too much of it when they first started talking to me about it. I thought I really thought it was like somebody with a little camcorder making a kitchen movie or something. I was a mess. I could barely. I've been kayaking since 2009, and I didn't have any trouble managing my kayak, but I'd already had both of my knees replaced in 2004, so it's been 10 years since I had my knees replaced. Now my shoulders were given, and I'd injured this shoulder a couple times from strain, my right shoulder. I'd already had 2 surgeries on it. It was getting to the point where I couldn't lift my arm. I couldn't, and it was my dominant arm. So managing power tools and stuff like that was lifting things in and out. It was getting hard to do those things.
Yeah, you were in a sling for the movie.
Yeah, I was still recovering from the second shoulder replacement.
Fern, the character of Fern, so it was a composite bunch of people. Was that, when I think of writing, I think of somebody sitting down and writing it down. But I think in talking to you, it sounds like some of that maybe happened, but a lot of it just kind of, Frances and Chloe both introduced themselves amongst these people, not differently than what Jessica did, and just kind of discovered the story as it went along. Or the script, I guess, you once told me it wrote itself, and I guess, can you just explain a little bit of how that process worked from your perspective?
Well, so Frances sent Chloe out to find us and get us to make a commitment to the movie, and she sent Chloe to Linda May's property in southeastern Arizona. And because my shoulder wasn't working, I knew I needed to do something about it. I had asked Linda May if I could come to. She had, several acres just in the middle of nowhere.
She's going to build her Earth ship, right?
Yeah, she's going to build an Earth ship there. She had a greenhouse already Jessica had actually come out. Jessica with some other crew members had come out and helped her build this greenhouse.
Okay.
That she put her little trailer. What'd she call that?
Squeeze in?
Squeeze in.
Yeah.
Inside the greenhouse.
Okay.
So she's living inside the greenhouse in the squeeze in one corner of the greenhouse.
Trailer inside of a greenhouse in the desert.
Jessica actually helped her build the greenhouse. So I'm off to the side of the greenhouse the following year after they built it or something. And I've got one arm that works pretty good and the other one is like pretty useless, 75% useless or more. I can't lift it shoulder high. I can't even lift it halfway up to shoulder high. So how do I put my kayak on top of the van? It was getting impossible. And to me, my kayak was my sanity. I felt like it was my connection to reality and sanity. If I didn't have the kayak as an escape and a purpose and a goal, I would lose my mind. Wow. I had to have, it was my center. And so I had asked Linda May if I could come out there because I could no longer put it on top of the van. I couldn't lift my arm like that. It takes both arms to put it up on top of the van, and 3 ladders. It was a process. So, I said, I can't, I have to figure out something else. So in my mind, I'm an engineer in my brain. And I thought, well, I have a little cart that I put the kayak on to drag it down to the water and stuff, a 2-wheeled cart. I thought, well, if I could just pull that up to the trailer, to the cargo trailer, to the floor of the cargo trailer, and slide that thing off of the cart right onto the floor, I wouldn't have to lift it anymore. I could just slide it in and out. So I went to Linda May's. I dumped the cargo trailer. I'm in the middle of tearing the whole thing out so I can rebuild this chute. And along comes this skinny little Chloe girl saying, hey, you want to be in my movie? And I went, no. And she says, but you have to be in my movie. And I said, no. And Linda May comes by and she says, you have to be in the movie. And I said, I don't want to be in the movie. I'm busy. I got to keep kayaking. I don't want to be in the movie. And they won't go away. And I'm still got everything. I had a yard sale in the middle of the desert where there aren't any people.
Your whole life is just out before you.
It's all out there on the ground, And I've got the thing torn apart and I'm trying to recarpentry the inside to build this chute with one arm, the wrong arm. And along comes Chloe, and so she's asking me questions. She's asking me questions, and I'm starting to answer her question. And she says, "Wait a minute." She gets the phone out, and she says, "Okay, go ahead." And she starts filming my answers. So then she's turning around. She's sending these film clips to Frances. In the meantime, and Frances, you got to get her to say yes. And I kept saying no. It's like, okay, will you go away? It's like, all right. I'm losing my arm. Do you understand? And I feel like I'm losing my freaking mind because I don't want to, I'm trapped. I feel trapped. And so I'm still thinking somebody's just going to make this little movie from the kitchen with a little camcorder, and
Yeah.
and it's like, they must have mentioned the name Frances McDormand a dozen times. I had never heard of her. I had not been watching the Oscars. I've been on the road since 2009.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any movies. I don't know who Frances is. I don't know what Fargo is. I had heard commercials for 3 billboards in Ebbing, Missouri.
Yeah.
I still did not know Frances. So she kept doing that. She would go away, and she took us all out to dinner one night to this really fancy hotel in Douglas, Arizona. I mean, floor to ceiling stained glass windows
Sure.
of desert scenes. This is huge. Marble columns, marble floor, marble staircase, wide steps, the kind princes and kings come down, I mean, and took us out to dinner that night, and, whining and dining us and trying to get me to say yes. And I'm going, will you just go away? Will you just, please? I said, you don't understand. I have one arm. Look, this one, I couldn't lift it that far, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't lift it that far. And Chloe is still there trying to get me to say yes. And she's still, everything, she'd get me talking like I am now, just babbling about some kind of story. And as soon as I got off on some tangent, wait a minute. And she'd start filming me with her phone and sending it off to Frances. And Frances kept saying, make her say yes. Yeah, we have to have her, And it's like, oh, my God. What's on your mind? And I said, listen, people, I have to finish this so I can transport this boat, or I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah.
I have to do this.
Yeah, this is my life, my purpose.
And I have to do this before the surgery because I don't know if I can do it after the surgery.
Oh, sure.
You don't know what the results are going to be of the surgery.
And the recovery at a very minimum.
And the recovery time.
Yeah.
I said, I don't have a surgeon. I don't know where I'm going to get the surgery, when I'm going to get the surgery, how long the recovery is, what the results of the recovery is, or anything. I explain all this to her and to go on and on. She goes, we'll work with your schedule. My jaw just literally dropped.
Wow.
It's like, what just happened? And my whole perspective changed. And I said, how can they want me so bad?
Yeah.
They're making a movie and they're going to work with my schedule? I just was totally speechless. Yeah. So I just said, okay.
Wow.
Okay. And she finally went away, thank God. She finally went away and left me alone. And so then off I went to resolve all this. I finished the shoot. I had met a woman. I don't know how I met her. I met a woman online who had her shoulders done by this surgeon in Colorado Springs. I had a friend in Colorado Springs. And I went, okay, this is meshing together pretty good. I'm not that far away. I'm going to Colorado Springs. I called and tried to make an appointment with him. He asked for me to submit all this medical information that I had to submit in advance. And I finally get in to see him. It turns out he is the head surgeon for the U.S. Olympic team. The head doctor for the U.S. Olympic team.
Wow.
Did my shoulders. Very antisocial. First shoulder anyway. He comes in, he's just cold as an ice cube, just cold. He was cold, and he didn't say 12 words to me, but he did my shoulder, and it was perfect. I have almost full range of motion. I can't get it behind my back too far. I got it done, and that was 2018, I guess. And then I went down and caught up with a movie crew. By then, they're in Arizona, getting ready to film the movie. And I still don't have a clue. I still don't know who Frances is. So I catch up, and they said, okay, we've asked the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, Bob Wells, and the people that head up Rubber Tramp Rendezvous to collect a group of people with older rigs that can be in this movie, because we can't have anything newer than like 2012.
Okay.
Because of the time setting, you can't have something that looks brand spanking new. And so they have to be arranged so it looks like a natural Rubber Tramp Rendezvous. So
show up and they're filming a movie, huh?
Here we are. They've gathered all of the fake real van dwellers for a fake RTR in the desert, and the location I took them to, they had a different location picked out, and I said, I got a better spot. We go over here, and I took them, and they chose my spot. And so I said, well, list me as a location manager or something.
Yeah.
They wouldn't list me. But they gave me a wonderful plaque. When you come out to the trailer, I'll show it to you. That's my prize. So we're all together. I still don't know this name, Frances McDermott. I had to ask somebody again. I said, "What's this actor's name? What's her name again?"
Mm-hmm.
And they told me. Somebody told her right now. I said, "Okay, tomorrow we're scheduled to start filming a scene together. Would somebody please point her out to me because I don't know who she is." Well, she's running around in bib overalls and t-shirt. Just looks like another van.
Yeah, she looks the part. Yeah, she's in character.
Yeah, she's totally in character. And she's just in her little van. Her van in the movie was modeled after my van. They came to my van and took pictures of my build and how I had everything set up, my stove and my bed and my curtains and everything. And they modeled her van, Vanguard, after my van. The art department came and were climbing around inside my van taking pictures of everything.
That's before the shooting even started?
Yeah, before, I mean, year before.
Yeah.
They had to build her van out. So they had to buy a used van and they had to build it out. And they used my van as the model for her van, for Vanguard. So Vanguard's already parked in there amongst all the other vans at this fake RTR. And I'm walking around and say, somebody tell me who she is. Point her out to me. And somebody pointed her out to me. So I head over to her and she's talking to 2 or 3 others of my friends and stuff. And I kind of walked up from behind her and I kind of went to tap her on her left shoulder to say, "Hi, and I want to introduce myself because we're going to start filming tomorrow. You know, I ought to say hi. You know, I'm kind of the host here, you know,
Sure.
and this is my turf." And I tapped her on the shoulder and she turned around and I got the S out and she squealed. Like, she squealed my name, Swankie, really, really loud, and stopped talking to all the people she was talking to. She spun around 180 degrees, grabbed me by the arm, and drug me off like 20 feet away from everybody else. And she started talking a mile a minute. I haven't a clue what she said. Not a single clue. I don't know what she said. And she finally took a breath and stopped, and I said, "I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. I've never heard your name before. I haven't seen any of your movies, but I thought I ought to say hi since we're filming a scene tomorrow." You know? And she didn't care.
Yeah.
She didn't care. She just gave me a big hug. And
It's probably a bit of a relief to her, I'm sure.
She just kept babbling. I don't know what she was saying. She's just another person. You know, it was nice for her to talk to somebody that wasn't a fan and wasn't relating to her. Was just relating to her as another person and not a fan, I guess. You know, I wasn't a fan because I didn't know who she was. I hadn't seen any of her movies or anything. So we had a big laugh over that, and I don't even remember what happened. The rest of the day was a total blank. I don't even know what happened after that. But then they come over, and so we're filming the scene inside my van where I'm telling her I'm dying and all this. And
Is that the first scene you shot?
I think it was.
Wow. Quite the way to start the whole thing.
Yeah. So now my van's pretty small. It's just an extended Chevy Express cargo van. And it's the bed in the back, across the back of the van, and then there's a little bit of a space between the bed and the desk, and a big desk, the same desk I have in my trailer now. I'll show you. And between it's just enough space between the two. Do you know the kitty litter buckets, the yellow and red buckets for kitty litter?
Oh, yeah.
You know, the one would fit right there in that space. But if you accordion Chloe down, she fits in that same space. She's a skinny little thing. You just squish her down, and she squished herself. And now, instead of my bed, because of my shoulder surgery, instead of my bed, I'd taken the bed out, and I had one of those recliners, and I had it bolted to the floor, and it was one of those lift recliners that picks you up. Because I didn't know if I could get myself up out of a chair with my shoulder still in this thing. So I had it there. So I had the recliner there, and used to have a bucket right there, but Chloe was right there, and then Frances was sitting at the chair in front of my desk, just 3 feet away. There was enough room for the recliner, the feet of the recliner to lift up, and then Frances's chair. That was the scene. So Chloe hands me these 3 sheets of paper with script on them, and I'd look at it and I go, okay, and they'd go, okay, roll, or whatever they say, and I was supposed to start talking, and it's like nothing's coming out of my mouth. Not only that, there ain't nothing in the brain either. I mean, I'm totally blank. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be saying, or why I'm saying it, or what the topic is. I don't even know. So she'd say, okay, cut. And I'd look at it again. same thing happened again. I'd see it and try to remember it, what she wanted me to say, what the script said, and I couldn't. She said, "What's the problem?" I said, I wouldn't say it this way. She says, "It's just a story. It's not your story. It's just a movie. It's just a story. It's not really your story." Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Okay. And we try again. I still can't get anything to come out of my mouth. She snatches the papers out of my hand and rips them up.
Chloe does?
Chloe. She's right there at my knees.
Hiding under your desk.
Accordion down there in a spot like that. She just bends her knees and you could probably put her in the bucket. and the script's gone and I'm going, She goes, "Just talk." From then on, that's what my scenes were.
Wow.
She would just tell me what the outline was and just talk. And so when I said about the part about having the book on final exit and
Dr.
dying, going off into the
Kevorkian.
wilderness to dying and all that, it's like, we hadn't even discussed that. It just came off the tip of my tongue from memory and what my thoughts had been in the past. And the thing is that my ex-husband, my kid's dad, got brain cancer and died. The odd thing about that is my first night in Quartzsite with any van dwellers was spent north of Quartzsite in a little place called High Jolly, BLM land. And I was with maybe a half a dozen other van dwellers, and this is 2009. And it was my first night with van dwellers. And it was New Year's Eve, and it was a blue moon, New Year's Eve, 2009. My son called me up to tell me his dad had died. And I was with a half a dozen other van dwellers. And we'd been divorced since 1970. Separated in 1970, divorced in 1973. This is 2009. And I fell apart as if it was yesterday.
Yeah.
But I was with friends. New friends. I didn't know them much before that. I was with other van dwellers. I returned to the campfire. We were making ham and cabbage for New Year's Eve dinner. And I remember looking off in the bush and seeing coyote eyes looking back at me in the dark. And I went back to the group and I thought, well, I can't talk unless I say something. I got to get this off my chest. I told them what had just happened. And it was like being with family, the compassion that they felt, and they understood me coming unglued and why I would feel that way. I mean, he's the father of my kids,
Yeah. Well, and you loved him.
And I did.
Yeah.
And so that all just came, it was his story. When I told Chloe that, she just incorporated that into the story and made that me dying in the movie of brain cancer instead of him, because she knew that I couldn't dialogue that or speak it without it involving emotion. I wouldn't have to fake the emotion because it was him, not me. And so that was our first scene together.
Wow.
Like I said, it was all ad-libbed.
What a way to start.
And not only was it ad-libbed, it was one take.
After she told you just be yourself, then
Just talk.
from there,
It
yeah.
was one take, and she took it.
Wow.
She didn't have me redo any of it. And most of my scenes were that way.
I mean, you've told me a couple of times there's things where, like, you didn't even realize they were filming. You thought you were just hanging out with Francis talking about this or that, and then you're like, wait, what? We're filming?
See, I mean, one of the important things about van dwelling is that your public persona, that what the public sees when they look at your van, they don't want to see somebody trashy living in their van, in a broken down van with paint peeling and rust and garbage in the windows and stuff like that. That's what gives van dwellers a bad reputation. And so I wanted my van to look clean and like a work van, and clean, nothing in the window, no trash, no garbage around my campsite, everything clean and tidy all the time. But I had a Chevy Express cargo van, a GMC, kind of thing. Those, and from 2006, I don't know what years it was, but it was a whole range of years there where they would peel. You'll see them all over the place, white vans everywhere with peeling paint. The first year I had it, I'm driving down the road, and all of a sudden, a big chunk of paint comes flying up off the hood and hits the windshield. And And every time I turned around, more paint was peeling off. So somebody had showed me how to do auto paint. So every time I got a bad patch coming off, I would sand it down and wet sand it and prime it and wet sand it and repaint it until it's nice and white and polished again. So it kept it looking good all the time. It's an involved process. It's not something you can't just take a can of spray paint and go over the bad spot and think it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. It's just going to keep peeling. And I wanted to maintain it looking okay and not trashy. And so they wanted Francis to come and spray paint my van, the spot on my van. And they went out and bought spray paint. And I said, I already have the correct paint, the correct color code. I have all the supplies to do it and everything. And I can show her how to do it if you want to see doing that, you know. And so it comes time to film that scene, and they come up with all of their supplies that they brought with all kinds of paint that doesn't match my paint and everything. And they just want to hand her a can of
they didn't know
spray.
what they're doing. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
And I told them over and over again, it's a process. It's involved. It's technical. It's time consuming. You can't just the paint and so they're handing her a can of paint, and they want her to walk over to the van and start spraying it. And I'm going, stop, because I would have to undo everything they did to fix that spot again, you know?
This isn't a movie prop to you.
No. So I'm arguing with them. I'm trying to stop them from doing damage to my van, and so I can show her what to do and how to do it, and we can film that scene and stuff. It's like I can stop. I didn't know the whole time Josh is down on the ground with the camera zooming in on my face with me arguing with them about all this, and he's already filmed it. And so, but came time to shoot the scene, he had already shot it.
You're like, oh, this is great. Just keep on.
Wrap.
You thought you were trying to defend your van, and they're like, oh, no, just keep winding her up. This is perfect.
Yeah. It was all 100% me trying to protect my van. It was funny.
Yeah, what was the line? You're like, your van's looking a little ratty.
Yeah, so I had leftover paint, and so I told her that when I got done with that, I wasn't going to do any more on my van, and she could have my leftover paint because her van was looking kind of ratty. So later, and that was ad-lib, totally ad-lib.
Yeah.
That moment was the first time I'd said the word ratty. I mean, one time I said it one time, only said it one time. And then later they film her over there looking at her van and looking at the rust around the tail light and everything. And she's looking at it and she goes, ratty. It just died.
That's so great. The movie came out, huge success, obviously, won the Oscars. You went to the Oscars. All sorts of anecdotes. I know you can share that. We'll save it for the book. Give somebody a reason to read it. Has the movie changed your life?
Really, not a lot. I mean, a lot of people call being a nomad a trip or being on an adventure or something. And I don't. It's just living my best life. Some nomads are forced into this life because of economics. And I guess I was kind of there, too, because I couldn't see a way to afford an apartment. I mean, I still didn't really have I'd gotten some training as a web designer and a multimedia design specialist and stuff, but I still really wasn't able to get a good paying job because I'm getting older, you know. Yeah. I'm 70 years old in 2014. Nobody wants to hire you anymore when you're that age. So I guess since the movie, not much has changed. We made a little bit of money. Linda May and I both made a little bit of money off the movie, more so than the other nomads because we had speaking parts, and we were the prime characters in the book, Jessica's book. But they called us. There were 5 producers. Chloe was one. Francis was a producer. Then there was Peter Spears. I can't remember.
And 2 others.
Molly Asher was one, and I can't remember the other guy's name offhand. Anyway, there were 5 producers. They got on a conference call Christmas Eve. It had to be 2020 to say they were giving Linda May and I this lump sum, more money than I had ever seen in a lump sum in my life.
What a Christmas present, huh?
And-
Especially in 2020,
and,
which is such a rough year for everyone.
I'm such a klutz. I'm sitting there. I got these 5 big people on the phone on a conference call calling to tell me on Christmas Eve they're giving me this. And I just like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? It's like,
I'm sure that's exactly the kind of reaction they want. I bet they're thrilled.
Well, Linda May immediately went out and bought a 4-square, 2-story old antique house in Oklahoma somewhere because she wanted something to give to her children and grandchildren, something to leave them. And the lady who sold it to her sold it with everything that was in it.
Okay.
She left everything behind, all the furnishings and everything. So Linda didn't need to buy anything. She just needed to clean things up and fix things up. And so, and I got mine, and it just sat there for a while. A high school classmate of mine that I had been following online had been traveling around the world, going to third world countries, finding poor children to adopt. He actually never married, never had children. He adopted 19 poor children from various third country worlds and put them all through college. He had taken on a project in South Sudan to help build a school for girls because in Africa countries, girls could not go to schools with boys. They had to go to private girls' schools only, and they couldn't. Therefore, they couldn't really get an education. So he was helping to develop this girls' school, and I had started following him and stuff, and I admired him in high school. Didn't know him well. I knew who he was in high school. I thought it was amazing that anybody would adopt 19 boys and put them through college.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So they could have better lives and have better lives for their countries in return. Yeah. And so he had this project going in South Sudan to build this girls' school, and he said he needed one more project funded, and that was a classroom for the girls, a new classroom for the girls, and he needed $10,000 for that. So he was trying to raise from, and I said, "How shall I make out the check?" And he went, "What?" And I said, "I'll give you the $10,000."
Wow.
Here's these girls, most of them from single-parent homes. I was from a single-parent home. I didn't have an education. They don't have an education. They can't have a better life without one. I couldn't either. I related to him as a classmate, and I said, "Just where should I send it?" And I just gave him $10,000 out of the money I had earned, which was a small percentage really of what I had made off the movie. And I thought, that's the least I can do to pay forward, what the goodness that has come to my life. And some newspaper guy said I had donated all my earnings to the movie, to the school. No, I didn't. I didn't. And so that's the only thing that's changed about my life. And I sat on the rest of that money for almost 2 years, and I thought, well, I'm getting older, the knees have been replaced, the shoulders are going bad. I have a son with some major hip problems. I thought, well, my hips could go bad. If they go bad and I can't walk anymore, then what do I do? I said, well, maybe I could get one of those little toy haulers that have a ramp that drop down. And if you can't, you can get a little mobility scooter and drive it up the ramp and park it in the living room. I thought, well, good. If the hips go, I could do that if I had a toy hauler. I thought, that would be perfect. If I had a trailer that was bigger, that allowed me to have room for projects, I could drop down the tailgate and have all that fresh air coming through. And right after my second shoulder replacement surgery with the U.S. Olympic team surgeon, because I had to have the other one done too.
The short guy from Colorado that didn't say much.
But the second one, I went in for the second surgery. In the meantime, the movies happened.
Oh, so now he's a little more talkative, huh?
And I sent him posters and a hat and autographs and everything. And he comes in the room to see me for the second surgery, and he's just bubbling over.
Now you're buddies.
He's laughing and joking. He comes in the room laughing and gives me a big hug, and he goes, "That's just the most amazing thing." Here he is. He's traveling with the Olympic team all over the world.
Yeah.
He went to Japan, a year or so ago, but he's he totally flip-flopped from the first shoulder to the second shoulder. And he said more in the first 30 seconds than he'd said the whole time I did the first surgery, And I just burst out laughing at him. It was so funny. So, So the money let me, I waited almost 2 years, and right after we finished that surgery, I learned that I had seen this trailer. I had visited with the people that owned the trailer I bought, and it came up for sale. And I called the guy and I said, "Now I've been sitting on that movie money for 2 years," and I said, "I'll take it." And I bought it, and then I had to buy a truck that would tow it because the van was not going to take it up and down mountains. But I don't feel, that was 3 years ago. Now I'm still traveling. I don't plan to stop traveling. I might get to a point where I can't see good enough to drive, and I figure if that happens, I'll hire somebody to move it when I want to move it, which is usually twice a year. In the wintertime, I move somewhere warmer, and in the summertime, I move somewhere cooler. But I don't see any reason to change my lifestyle at all.
You feel content?
I do. I feel content. So, yeah. This is how I know. It's like I start down a road. I may not exactly even know where I'm going. I might have kind of going to go to the next state or something, and I'm driving down the road. And all of a sudden, I'm the only car on the road in either direction. There's nobody out there but me. And I went, I must be going the right direction. This feels good. And I love the feeling that there's nobody there but me. And when I find a campsite, if I can't see another camper anywhere in any direction, that's the perfect campsite. There's just something about it being alone in the wilderness works for me. And that's when I feel the most content, I think. You asked me one other thing that I thought was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me what my legacy would be.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it really won't be much in terms of property or businesses or monetary assets or anything like that. I was born poor, and I'll probably die poor. Less poor than when I was born, but still poor. But my children are better off than I was.
Yeah.
And hopefully their children will be better off than they are. But I'll never know.
Yeah.
So why worry about it?
Sure.
I can't change it. So it's hard to say what my legacy will be, except I think it'll be the biography, thanks to you. I've lived long enough to know that what I want my legacy to be may not be what it turns out to be in reality. But I don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
I can only live my best life.
I feel like just, we're at 1977 so far in your biography. So there's so much left to be written, but there's almost like this period of time where you're kind of figuring it out, this period of time where you're trying to make something of your life. A lot happens, right? You become a nomad, you have this goal of the kayak that kind of anchors you. And then you wrap up that goal, and then it's just like everything happens, It's like this stuff just happens to you. And I don't know what the life lesson is there, if there even is one, but I think it's fascinating to me as somebody that 36 years old trying to make something in my life or do something or create something. And there's so much of life that just happens to you,
And I started the kayaking when I was 65.
Yeah.
You could have 30 years worth of living before you figure out you want to do something different,
Yeah. And, it's this fascinating thing where, yes, there's an element of doing something, creating a goal, going after it, but there's also this element of you do that and then things just happen. And I don't know what your legacy is going to be. I don't think anybody knows what anybody's legacy is going to be, but that idea of stuff just happens, right? You create your own environment where you feel like you're thriving for your own reasons. And then other stuff just kind of, Frances McDormand discovers your story,
If somebody said, write down your storyline for the next 20 years or something or other, I never could have invented something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you did, people would be like, yeah, right. That's not going to happen. Yeah.
You don't know. All you can do is be true to yourself and live your own best life. As long as you're not harming other people, what difference does it make what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is you're not harming other people and you're not a burden to other people. Funny thing is, at the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous about 4 years ago, they showed the movie Nomadland. And in the baseball field, in Quartzsite, Arizona, they have a baseball field with green grass.
Oh, wow.
which is
in the
rare
desert.
and so they have a stage set up, and they had a big inflated balloon screen set up, and they showed the movie, and then afterwards they had a question and answer period, and so people are. It was Bob Wells on stage and Sue Carlson, who did the scene in Nomadland with the buckets, the different size
sure.
buckets.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
Sue Ann Carlson. She was like the executive director for HAWA, Housing on Wheels Associates, and Derek the cowboy in the movie.
Yeah.
The four of us on stage, and someone in the audience asked, "Would you ever do a movie or a sequel again?" And without giving it a moment's thought, I shouted, "Hell no!"
It's over. Well, we'll see what happens with the sequel. But Anne Swankie, thank you so much. It's been a blast working on this project with you, and I feel like the best chapters have yet to be written. So
I hope so. Thank you for your guidance.
Yeah. Well, I don't have much to offer, but we're figuring it out, right? So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Interesting People is produced by Chris Beatty in his basement. I've done 7 of these interviews now, and every single one has felt special, but this one really meant a lot to me. I felt a range of emotions that I can't really explain, at least not on the sign-off for a podcast, but luckily I'm writing a book about it, and we are nowhere close to being done with it, so I guess I'll figure out what to say about it later. Nomadland was recently released on Netflix, so if you haven't seen that movie yet, you can just watch it by stealing someone's login password and watching it that way. Believe me, it's worth it if you get caught. Also, please read Jessica Bruder's book, Nomadland. Jessica and Swankie developed a really close friendship throughout that process, and the book kicks ass. To get updates on Swankie's biography, please subscribe to my newsletter on csbd.com. And if you know anyone that's good at getting books published, well, feel free to put in a good word for us. Seriously, our book is going to be awesome. Signing off from the greatest city on earth, Omaha, Nebraska, and wherever Swankie's currently lodged at.